video, we are going to be looking at the changes in the standard of living in Germany from the years 1924 to 29 after Gustav Stresemann had come in and sorted out the economic and foreign problems that Germany was facing. So let's look at unemployment in Germany. So unemployment was a huge social problem in the early years of the Weimar Republic because obviously they had just come from World War One and therefore there weren't many jobs because they didn't have anything to work for. For in 1924, over 4% of the total possible workforce was unemployed, and this was a huge amount. However, there were gradual improvements. For example, in 1926, the number of people unemployed were only 2 million. In 1928, the number of people unemployed was 1.3 million. So you can see that there was a huge improvement being made by this constitution. And help for the unemployed also improved. For example, there were still over 1 million people who were unemployed by the end of 1928, but they had more support than they ever would have had if the Weimar Republic was in place. For example, the Unemployment Insurance Act of 1927 charged 16,400,000 workers 3% of their wages and in return provided 60 marks per week in unemployment and sickness benefits if they fell out of work. So it was almost like a tax. So people were being taxed to help these unemployed. And it's like our modern tax system where people who are unable to work or who can't find a job or whatever it might be, we pay tax and they can rely on the benefit system so that they can run their daily household so that they have enough to make a living. And just like this, it was the Unemployment Insurance Act of 1927, which helped these 1.3 million unemployed people that were in Germany at the end of 1928. Remember that you are learning these specific statistics because they do help you in the exam. It shows that you have your own knowledge, which the examiners are looking for. So now let's have a look at the work and wages for those who were employed. So working conditions did improve, so did the wages. So the working days has shortened and the real wages have risen by 25%. For example, in 1925, people were working 50 hours per week. However, by 1927, this had been reduced to 46 hours a week, which was a huge improvement because wages were rising, working days were shortened, and so people were having a better standard of living. Housing was also a huge problem because by 1923 there was a shortage of 1 million homes in Germany. And so there was a series of steps that the government took to help the homeless people so that they were given homes and that the problem of homelessness was reduced. For example, in 1925, a 15% rent tax was introduced to fund building associations. So people who were building houses were given more money by the people of Germany so that people could be homed. From 1925 to 29, private companies had built 37,000 new homes, with the new building associations building 64,000 homes. So there was so many people working together to provide as many homes as they could. For example, there was one association alone, GEHAG, and they had built 10,000 new houses in Berlin. And this was in Berlin alone, and this was taking place all over Germany. And so, even though there was still a housing shortage, it had incredibly eased by 1928. So now let's look at other improvements. So war veterans were offered help. So war veterans were people who had suffered from the war, who had fought in the war, and they needed help. So under the 1920 Reich pension law, pensions were paid through the 1920s to 750 war veterans, 400,000 war widows, 200,000 parents of dead servicemen. So you can see that people were being supported, they were being given help. For example, women didn't have as much opportunity to work for themselves. Those who were war veterans, they were injured, perhaps they couldn't afford the living of themselves. Parents of dead servicemen, perhaps they were those who had retired and relied on their children for income. And since they had died perhaps in the war, they were offered the help that they needed. On the positive side, education was also improved, and which meant that more young people were achieving their goals. For example, the number of students in higher education before the First World War was 70,000, and by 1928, so after World War One, it had increased to 110,000, which is a huge increase, showing that people were now taking more interest in education, more interest in learning more and becoming the best that they can be to achieve their goals. But the important question to look at is, was there actually an improvement in the standard of living? Because we have looked at unemployment, we've looked at work and wages, houses, and education, war veterans. But did this actually benefit anyone, or was it only a group of people who were being benefited, and therefore the Republic hadn't actually achieved what they set out to do? It's important to note that these improvements in social conditions, so the fact that people were working for less hours but being paid more, the fact that there were more people going into education, it was all fragile because employment still remained insecure, and the loss of savings during inflation of 1923 still caused hardships because people ultimately had lost everything they had and they were building up again. Important to recognize that the economy that they have built up, from the unemployment to the wages to the education to pensions and everything, relied on America. As soon as anything happens to America's economy, Germany also collapses because that is what the economy is being built upon. It's what is holding the economy together, and therefore social conditions were fragile. And so it can be argued that there wasn't actually an improvement in the standard of living. And that is it for this video. If it was useful, please give it a thumbs up. Leave any comments down below, any questions you might have, and I will answer them. Subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.